the mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, joins me now in studio. Mayor, thanks for coming in.
Ni hao.
It's been almost a year since John Tory stepped down as mayor, and you launched your campaign that would see you become the mayor of Canada's largest city. How would you assess your time so far at Toronto City Hall?
Have a wonderful time. All the people rode all the tax that I make them pay. Oh, that's me on a bicycle celebrate the Uber Eat. That's me get a necklace from a native people. We take that around, we don't give it back. Oh, that's me. That's how I dress at the rub and tuck. Everybody is so upset about my new controversial tech where we tax on the rain. In China, it rain a cat and dog. Here rain money, and I want to correct the money for all the poor people to buy the fentanyl and other drug that I'm going to slowly make legal as we get rid of all the rich people.
Progress is slow, though.
Yeah, right before, but then one more thing I was going to say.
It's all right. I'm going to edit it, so don't sweat it.
Yeah, no, I'm going to edit mine also. I'm going to take out this, I'll take out whatever stuff in the beginning that is a little clumsy. Wait, let me see here. So, yeah, and then I guess I'll just do this more like, I'm very new to this. I mean, if you saw my channel, it has about a 531 followers, which is very small, but majority of those followers were gotten because I was making just, videos for fun many years ago, maybe like even up to 8 years ago with my friends about bodybuilding nutrition, but I never really gave it a stab at it. And this time I want to take a stab at it for maybe a lengthy amount of time on these. I mean, I still want to discuss men's health and nutrition and things that are pertinent to men's health, but there are some very important issues that I've been following for a while, obviously considering I've been following you, and I just want to touch upon that. So do you mind if I, let's say, maybe make this kind of like, more like a conversation, but more like maybe interviewing you kind of? Is that okay?
Yeah, 100%, man.
Okay, and also I have like, I don't want to ramble here too much, but I also am approaching this with like a very strong code of conduct because there are people online who I believe are hugely disrespectful. So, you know what I'm saying?
I didn't notice.
Yeah,
Tell me more.
I know. So it doesn't matter how much I play nice, and I'm not I'm also not a paperweight or a sucker, but I do believe that I'm going to conduct myself, as good as possible. So if I mention names, it's never to slander someone, or I might even avoid a name because I don't think it's necessary sometimes. I think you know where I'm going with this, and yeah, that's just we'll just keep it very good. And also one thing, and I'll press record, is that what I liked about your style and Andy's style is that and we'll mention this during the conversation, is that like I like your style a lot and Andy's and some other people because it's very lucid and sober. It's not like this fucking madhouse, crazy fucking demented crowd that is in some of these spaces. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what's nice talking to, Andy was the first person I ever interviewed with IM on our channel.
Okay.
And I found him through Tim Kelly, 67, who I had been listening to when I lived in Cambodia. Yeah. Fast forward many years later, I found Andy's email and emailed him. And what's nice about Andy is that the ongoing joke between the two of us is ruminations, the lost rumination of a low status male. So I always title the shows with Andy something with the word ruminations because, like you said, it's very lucid. And as we spitball questions and questions back and forth to each other, it's like, what's on your mind? What is it? The ink blot test? Like, what do you think of this, Andy? I mean, he's like, I don't know. I never thought of it that way. Well, if you think about it, and so that's why I enjoy speaking to Andy because again, it's him ruminating right then and there as we're in live time.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he has a very interesting mind, and his stuff really hit home with me. I did read Ruminations of a Low Status Male, the series of it, and it was very interesting. And the funny thing is that actually, my uncle, who I'm very close to, actually calls me the Ruminator. So it was really like, it all ties together. But I'll press record now and I'll introduce us and then we'll go to the questions. Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to press record here. Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Bradley Runner with my channel, A Male Space. And today I'm talking to Lamprey Milt of MGTOW Chats. And today we're going to be discussing the usual. The state of men in the current day, their challenges and their experiences. So I'd like to start off this conversation with maybe some background about yourself. I've been following your videos for years. I thank you for being here. I've always found your videos thought-provoking. What led you to the male space online? You know, whether we consider it MGTOW, MRA, PUA, red pill, black pill, all those spheres. So what got you here?
Originally it was did a call in to Stefan Molyneux about my Khmer girlfriend and her being um, a, a lady of the night, as they say, but in Asia, which is very different than what we think of it in the U.S. And from there, a lot of other expats recognized my voice. They knew who I was because the community is relatively small. And one expat that went by MGTOW expat, he interviewed me. We became friends while living in Asia briefly. And while doing shows with him, live streams with him, I became friends with I Am Serious. I Am thought I was really cool. He goes, I had a popular MGTOW channel. I want to interview you. I want to do some shows with you. And one thing led to another. That's kind of more or less how MGTOW chat started. I wanted to do something during my free time while living in Asia with a friend who was living there. We had so many geopolitical conversations. We were like, we should record this, and we called it the Kampuchea tapes. We did like a couple rough demos, but we had a falling out. And that's basically it. It was something I always really wanted to do because I again, ruminating, thinking of all these different things. I was like, I really should put this all together because I feel like I had a lot to share. And I'm kind of a little bit of like a Renaissance man where I know a little bit a lot of different things. It wasn't necessarily going to be just strictly about men and women, though that's kind of like the meat of MGTOW chats. So I try to spread out in different topics as much as possible. So that's kind of the bird's eye view on how this all came about. And that's a while ago. That's like 7, 8 years ago. 2017, late 2017 is when me and I am really hit the pavement.
Yes, that's actually around the time that I discovered you. I probably discovered you around the time that you were starting, and your material hit home with me immediately. And I liked many of your guests. And well, the reason why probably maybe you've seen some of my videos is that I came to this space because again, like I said with Andy's videos and with my video with Raymond, I do not seek pity per se, but I grew up fatherless, and there is now a fatherless crisis. And because of that, other family issues or where I grew up, even personal characteristics about myself, led to some challenges in my life. So that's why I'm here. Actually, I came to these spaces from that point of view. And obviously, as you and I know, when there are things challenging in a man's life personally, it usually, I believe, manifests itself in relationships with women, which is what I want to get to also. Now, there's like I have a list here of topics and questions, but I think that you touched upon something very interesting. That you said that the meat and potatoes of your channel is the relations between men and women, the intersexual dynamics. Now, my view is this, and I want to get your opinion on this, and this is a spur of the moment question because it's not on my list here, is that do you think that this strong focus on the so-called women question, all that it encompasses, all this analysis, all these ways of trying to figure out how to get a woman, how to date, should you marry, should you have a family? See, my view is this though, is that this is more, like I was telling Andy, more of like a symptom, the comorbidity of several other factors, meaning that I think the focus goes to the women and how to get women because there are other serious problems in men's lives, whether it's personally or collectively, meaning that much of what we do in life, and also I don't buy the notion that every single thing that a man does is to get a woman. Many things that I enjoy doing is not because of a woman. I am a total gym rat. I don't go to the gym for women. I'm already married, and my wife never even cared about my gym hobby. But do you think that the focus goes to women? Because, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, people, young men, want to develop a life for themselves, whether that's through studying, academics, earning a living, making a life for oneself, a social life, to ultimately form a life with a woman, and in many cases, a wife and children. So, do you think it's because of the other challenges For example, the like they say, the increased male unemployment, social problems that are arising from kind of, let's say, this atomized and individualized world, and not developing social skills, people having less friends, less social connections, because it seems to me that the focus is on women and this ongoing, uh, just never ending analysis of how to get a woman, especially in the red pill space, which we will discuss. What do you think of that?
It's funny because I've been thinking about what you just asked quite a bit the past couple months. We men in America put way too much stock into women, and for reasons that go back to early childhood development, and the culture at large, we see that we need to be validated through women, which is something I kind of argue with a lot of other men in the red pill MGTOW community. Like, no, it's not. The woman is an afterthought. You have to focus on yourself first. Don't put the woman ahead of yourself. And even for myself, I tend to fall into that trap where I want to make, if I'm dating someone, I want to be credited, or if I'm doing something properly in her mind and through her lens and eyes, I'm doing the right thing. When in fact, you really shouldn't be doing that. It really should be about what's best for you. Because as soon as you start putting the ball in her court, that's when you start losing respect, and you can see that uh, it's completely unraveled, where we've put so much heavy emphasis on validation through women that women just don't like us at all. That's
Yeah.
that's what that's kind of what I've been ruminating as of the last few months.
Right, because it's interesting that you said that, because a quote from Roger Devlin came to my mind, where in which he said in Sexual Utopia and Power, I forgot which essay in that book, which is a
Great book, by the way. I haven't read it in about 5 years, but it's a great book.
yeah. I was talking to Ray and Andy about it, and I even showed it, on the screen. I had a copy with me, my copy of it. I showed it to Ray on the screen. It's really an excellent book. I really wish that book was around in the 1990s. It would have served me very well to understanding not only just the relationship between the sexes, but he has some good things in there just about being a solid man. And one thing that he said also was that when men are weak like this, the women would respond with sadism. And I agree. I believe that women, again, I'm not a PUA. I have nothing to do with pickup. I don't even, nothing to do with that stuff. Nothing with the red pill analysis of how to gain women, seek their approval constantly. But I do believe that women admire strength and kind of a steadfastness rather than just this aim of trying to please and impress them. So if you have a bunch of men around that are spoiling them with attention, just piling on with the attention in social media and also in everyday life, I don't think the women respect this, actually. And that's why I said that I think Roger Devlin is right with saying that they do respond with a sort of disgust. And that's in line with what you're saying. And that leads me to also to go into what I was discussing with Andy also. And my topic here also is that it seemed like when I was talking to my uncle one time about life in the 80s versus when I went to Cardozo High School in the early 90s, is that the culture was less focused on women, meaning that men had maybe a girlfriend or two, went to college, married someone, and the same went for most of the women that he was around. Meaning that a woman might not have even have dated in her teenage years, or maybe just had one boyfriend in high school, had another in college. Maybe she married him or not, and then by the time, maybe let's say by the third boyfriend, she's married. So he said it was like this less intrusive culture. When I got to high school, and even my female friends said this, that the culture by the 90s was very sex oriented, very female oriented, and very intrusive, meaning that who's screwing who? Do you have a girlfriend? Are you screwing someone? Meaning everything about the woman. And also just this kind of an excessive socialization with the women, meaning men just not doing their own thing, meaning that the cool guys being so wrapped up with women and women constantly being around men that it created this kind of kind of like a gynocentric atmosphere, actually. And a lot of competition between men to get women. And you discussed with Josh Neal a change in culture as the decades went by. So, from your, let's say, adolescent years or teenage years up until the current day, do you notice this shift of the focus on women?
So I have a brother who's 15, so I'm kind of through. I'm trying to live vicariously through him, and he's a jock, which I wasn't. Neither was my brother or any of my friends growing up. So he's very popular. He's tall. He's nothing I was in high school, so it's very nice to see him being something that I wasn't. So I'm really psyched about seeing my brother be kind of the alpha male and women just, chasing him and stuff like that. And it's funny because he's taken a lot of things that me and my brothers have told him what to do and what not to do, and he's running with it. And women are just, they're just drawn to him. And his attitude is, and this is what we tell him, just don't care. Like if
Okay.
they're texting you all night long, don't respond for 3 or 4 days. It's going to drive them crazy, and they're going to want you even more. And I think circling back to what you had asked, so like my coming of age adolescence, I played video games, and I was a shut in till probably about 16. And it was my brother's group of friends that were really trying to pry me to get outside, smoke weed, hang out, shoot the shit. And they were a couple of years younger than me. And so I kind of just started tagging along with these this group of teenagers, and it would be like maybe like a dozen group of really tight guy friends, and the women were always kind of on the periphery. They're poking, trying to get in, not text messaging, but calling, trying to get involved in whatever the guys were doing. And we would always kind of make a point one way or another to them. Listen, if you're going to enter our space, it's not going to be anything you like. We're going to be groping your tits. We're going to be blowing blunt smoke in your face. There's going to be beers. There's going to be fights. So we're just warning you. And they were like, oh, yeah, that's fine. And they did. They hopped right in. They didn't give a shit whatsoever. And they never were like pearl clutching or running to call the cops or anything of that sort. They just rolled with it. And all those women, from the ones I still somewhat communicate with or have loose affiliations with, they all have grown up to have functioning and decent lives. So I think from just the group of women that I've hung out with, even my cousins, female cousins for that matter, the more they understood men in a man space, a manosphere, the more they're able to cope with dealing with a guy. It's the women you see that were kind of like in sororities and were always with a harem of other girlfriends. Those are the ones that I think a lot of men continue to hawk on and continue to discuss ad nauseum on Barfly podcast and such.
Right. Yes. Well, it's funny you said that what you were saying, a little bit of the naughtiness that the women joined in on, because I'm not sure if you saw my other videos before this, but do you remember of the time at the time the movie Kids from the 90s?
I did not see that movie. I know the movie. I've never watched it.
Yeah, because some of that was a little extreme. I never saw things get that extreme as shown in the movie. It was a fictional movie that was kind of, well, not kind of, it was portraying reality to a large degree, but there was one scene in it which reminded me of a home that I used to hang out in, this kind of never supervised home in about 97 to 98, around those times. And it was just simply a house of debauchery, and the women, they joined in. I'm not saying that all good things happened there, but it was kind of similar to what you were saying, actually. Just the women, I guess, rolling around in the dirt with the guys, so to speak. So I get what you're saying, definitely. But were you around also for, let's say, the 90s? Judging from where you were, let's say the New York City club scene. Do you remember the social climate at the time where they had clubs like, Palladium, Twilight?
Yeah, I remember Palladium. Yeah. Again, that I was kind of at the tail end of all that because you're talking that for me, I was 17, 18, around like from my teenage years range from '02 to I guess '07. So I don't really. From my understanding about the 90s seemed like a fucking wild time and a lot of fun. Because I have cousins that are your age. My one of my good friends is 50, and he tells me what was like in like 1995, and it seemed like a blast. There was none of this helicopter parenting. Obviously, you didn't have cell phones and things like that. Music scene was great. I think club music of the 90s was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I can't think of any artists. I think of Amber. Amber comes to my mind. So like one more night, tonight's the night, like that style. Baby, don't hurt me,
Yes, that,
don't hurt,
yes,
like that
yeah.
style of music. And the '90s, just a lot of fun, man. It's a great. How could it doesn't matter if you're a boy, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl or black, white or a smack. It didn't matter. Like that songs were just awesome. Like everybody wanted to go out and beep bada 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 beep bada bada like
Oh yeah, yeah,
with boom
yeah.
boxes and shit. You
Yes,
know, like
right, right.
so. Like I remember, I think I've mentioned on this show. Like I have two cousins. They're in their late 40s. And I was really little, and I would go into their room. They lived in they lived in the basement of my aunt's house, and it was the doors were always locked, and me and my brother would just be banging on the door, let us in. We always want to see what the fuck they're doing inside here. They open up just hairspray and jewelry everywhere, and the big hair, and they're about to go
Yes,
out for clubbing. And it was just this world that I was like, wow, what kind of world are they in? Like, where are they going and stuff? And again, that's
yeah.
kind of like the mid 90s and stuff. Now, going into the 2000s, you had more techno music. There was, the rock scene was with, a lot of emo and pop punk rock, and obviously rap. But by that time, the music became much more diverse. Music started becoming these certain cliques where I don't think you necessarily got that as much in the 90s. You had grunge, you had whatever R&B and things like that, but once it became more and more diverse, you started more and more of this atomization of different subgroups within kind of like this hierarchy of class, this hierarchy of groups of people who hangs out with you. Well, who hangs out with who?
Yes.
There's a joke when I was growing up, like any girl that likes Hot Topic or punk, they tend to be a little bit more poorer. They're a little bit on the lower scale socioeconomic hierarchy. They're a little bit lower, so they're a little bit easier to fuck versus the preppy girls who would wear, some like their boyfriend who's the running back's jacket. That was another group, and no one really would. Like the cool kids would never want to hang out with them because they were just so anal, and then that group would always hear of one of like the malcontents or the street kids having a party. They would text me like, can we come, like we promise we won't do this, and we'll be cool, blah blah blah. And we're like, oh, like the preppy kids want to hang out at our party, so they would come to the party, but come school they will want nothing to do with you. But I think that's kind of just high school in general, more or less. I don't think that has not changed whatsoever. Those dynamics have not changed since I guess the public education system was founded in the U.S. Going into into your 20s is interesting because what I had seen with the Great Recession and with people of my generation, again, anyone that's like 33 to the age of 33 to like 40, what you got was the birth of YOLO, right? So everyone started, they kind of subconsciously were aware of, okay, everything's $1 million. I'm not making anywhere close to being able to afford a home like that. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to achieve that type of economic success. So you started partying, credit cards, glamour zoning, started coming to fruition around the time the internet started to take off. So like 2011, 2012, you started, the club scene started, you talk about Palladium, I remember Avalon, Pasha was another one. I didn't go, other story, but I didn't go that often to nightclubs. If I did, it was for a specific a DJ that I happened to like and my friends would like also. But then again, you go to the club, you see a girl you like, you start talking to her. There's no place to really take her. You'd have to leave the venue. You can't get back to the venue. This media, television, Facebook started promoting all these type of entertainment, the Rick and Morty Wild Wing entertainment. But once you start actually engaging it, you see there's so many different obstacles to actually having fun.
Right.
And I see that with Gen Z too. They want to do what millennials did, but they're only seeing pictures and videos and listening to the music. They don't actually know what it was like going to these venues. Like I said, you go to the venue, the song's changing every 90 seconds. You start dancing, song changes. You go get a drink. There's a 300% markup on a drink. You start talking to a girl. You can barely speak to her. Bouncers everywhere. Sometimes there's fights. Cops are outside. It was strange, and it honestly never really resonated with me to the point where I actually wound up leaving the country. So
Yeah, I see. But it's interesting that we're familiar with the same place and the same times and place, actually. And yeah, it was a fun time. I actually did meet my first serious girlfriend at Twilo, and I forgot the famous techno DJ that was there. Very well known techno DJ.
Tiesto, bro,
Oh,
Paul
actually,
Oakenfold, bro.
that actually might have been who it was. Actually,
There you go.
but I didn't meet her at the place. Bumped in. I was talking to her online first, and then we met up. She was from Connecticut. I was from Queens. So yeah, there was a connection there. But with my group of friends and some people I hang out with, sometimes things did happen. Not at the club. People would exchange phone numbers, meetups. Let's say even when I used to go to Roosevelt Field Mall back in the '90s, there were women all over the mall, and there was one case in which we met a group of women who we actually hung out with more than once in high school, actually. So now that actually leads me to believe to another question that I want to ask you, and I like the way this is flowing because the questions that are in my head are coming out with what you're saying. Is that
Hmm.
you're describing a very social scene here. You're describing a time in the '90s and early 2000s that I experienced also. Is that in the late '90s and early 2000s, the way that the males and females would meet was simply just by, I'm going to say this, literally just by existing,
Yeah,
going
it
about.
happenstance.
Yeah, meaning that you walk up the block to a park. There are, let's say, 20 people there playing game after game of basketball, handball, tag football. There are women around, or you make friends like that, or you make plans with the people who are at the park, or you go to a keg party in the middle of a golf course. Obviously it's a legal party. You shouldn't be. They don't want you in the golf course from 12 to 4 in the morning, or let's say going to Alley Pond Park in Queens, and you got a bonfire there, with hordes of people. Well, there you met the women, and the women met the men just by living their lives, enjoying themselves, and introductions. Now, what I see here also, like these guys like Scott Galloway and Tucker Carlson and Jordan Peterson, and all these other talking heads out there saying men aren't approaching women, men aren't approaching women. Well, my view is this though, is that this is kind of like, let's say, a unwarranted criticism, because I don't know of one married couple or so-called serious relationship that was formed by a stranger man approaching a stranger woman. So you'll have someone like Scott Galloway say, or some other one of these talking heads, maybe not him specifically, say, X percentage of men have not approached a woman. Well, there are hardly any couples that started from an approach. These people met from school, work, or they kept on seeing each other around the way, meaning that you saw each other at the town gym. You went out at night, you saw the same person. That person knows your friend. She knows your friend. And that's the way it was. So do you think that the reason why this focused on approach, or this, let's say, I don't mean bottom of the barrel in a negative way. I just mean that it's a course of action that is, let's say, a last resort, is a cold approach, meaning that did you hit the pavement and approach 50 women in a week? This is from, to me, again, a symptom or comorbidity of people not meeting each other in general. And I don't really know what's going on with Gen Z now, and I do have a concern with Gen Z, and I feel that I have an obligation to speak about men's matters, considering what I've been hearing about and observing. I think you know where I'm going with this. Is this because Gen Z actually is that atomized? I'm not a young person. I'm 45 years old. Do you know if they are?
Well, when you got people like Scott Galloway, that's his name, right? I've heard the name before. I've seen some of his stuff. When you have cuck servitors start talking about these things, and that's been more of a recent phenomenon, maybe the past year, is that they see that, well, look at all these guys talking about this. We should do it too. So they latch onto it and they try
Yes.
to steer the conversation in a direction that they want it to go in. You know what I mean? So they're kind of cherry picking a lot of the talking points people such as ourselves are talking about, and they steer it towards this very tradcon direction where, again, blaming the men. And
Yes.
that's always been a thing that has always mentioned, that no matter what, guys are going to get blamed. No matter, you can never talk about OnlyFans, you can never talk about Instagram, you can never talk about the divorce. These things are taboo because it starts shining a bright light on women. And what I've noticed within not so much podcasting or streaming is that most men, regardless if they identify with something in the manosphere, they're sick and tired of hearing it. They just now it's just like it's to the point where no, we're not listening. We're over this. I'll tell you why guys aren't hooking up, and then they'll play like a 30-second clip from TikTok. You see that right there. Now I know I'm not generalize, and we are going to generalize.
Yeah,
We're not going to talk about the exception. We're going to generalize here that all women tend to be doing X, Y, and Z that men do not like. And as soon as men start talking about men do not like these things, it goes back to it's men's fault. Men need to man up, so on and so forth.
yes,
She's a strong, independent woman. You just can't handle it. No, I just don't want a fucking headache.
right. Yes, exactly. And also, even what Scott Galloway, and I don't want to focus on him too much, but these are very important matters actually because he's a big talking head, and I do believe that online life is real life. Influencers do influence people. So someone like Scott Galloway, one time he said it. He said that we have to learn how to, or we have to fashion society so that the bottom 80% of men can get into the 20%. How does it even
That doesn't
mathematically
even
make
work. It's not even.
that doesn't make sense? How can
Right.
you
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
That's like saying that everyone's going to be gorgeous and a millionaire with loads of social connections and charisma. And judging from the division of labor that we need in society, just by that alone, whether we need manual laborers, mid-level professionals, or highly skilled professionals, how would they all have the same status? Something else is going on here that is making it so that men are not leading satisfying lives, not getting married, not having children. They never look at the big picture, actually. And but that also, like you said, and it's great that you're the flow of this conversation. You're leading into a lot of important questions that I have. I want your opinion on is that when you just said that a lot of men are saying that they're done with this tradcon take of Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
Scott, etc. They're done with that. I personally, I mean,
The boat sailed for these guys.
Yes.
The boat totally sailed. Like you are 10 years too late for these conversations, my friend.
Yes, exactly. And also, what I want to get to also is that I personally am not a fan of the Red Pill 2.0. And I call Red Pill 2.0 because when I remembered, or maybe I have these labels wrong because there are various labels now. I'm not into them. I'm simply concerned about the well being of men generally. I don't have to talk in the context of black pill, red pill, TFL, PUA, etc. That's not my style. It's not going to be my style. Is that I'm also see those tradcons kind of have a similar take to the red pillars. The red pillars, what they have to offer, which I don't like, is that it's a constant whining and yammering about antisocial female antisocial behavior and how awful women are, but then telling young men that they must improve, they must do things for women, they must become a guerrillionaire, they must have a six-pack, all these other things to get women, at the same time of never stopping bitching about women. I mean, and I've actually posted under some of these influencers pages, and my posts probably get lost in the shuffle with all the dozens or hundreds of posts they get. So I've said to them, well, by your logic, sorry for those pings, I don't know why it's coming up. I said, by your logic, women are terrible. So if women are terrible, why are you exhorting young men to associate with them? Does that make any sense? I don't think it makes sense. What do you think of this kind of?
It's for clicks and likes and attention. So you have to realize at the end of the day, anyone putting anything out there on the internet, they want attention. So these topics tend to get the most views. With me and you were to start doing a podcast on, I don't know, the conflict in Yemen, you're gonna probably get 1/4 the amount of views versus talking about women on OnlyFans and their body count.
Yes, yeah. Well, actually, that's what someone else told me also, is that it is for clicks, and that's probably what it is. It's just that I really it's kind of.
But none of them are also. A lot of them are there. A lot of them are serving the same dish, just to different various levels of ingredients to certain things. So like on my show, it's like a lot of like things that I discussed, 4 or 5 years ago, let's just say before COVID. I see now other people taking up the torch and running with it, and that's fine. I think that's great because there's always going to be someone that's never heard these things before. It may be boring for me to repeat, about women having sex with their dogs, and I don't really feel like, discussing that anymore. Maybe in the future I will because I find it hilarious. And a little hyperbole, just a little bit. But the point being is that there's always going to be someone new that's never heard these takes before. So if someone else is mentioning it now, and though me or whoever it might be had mentioned this and said, "Oh, I said that, 5, 10 years ago. Now this guy's talking about it." Like,
Right.
where were you 10 years ago? You
Yes.
can't look at it through that lens because there's always going to be someone coming of age, someone who had their heart stepped on,
Yes.
or divorced. So it's I think it's okay overall. And listen, the more and more people talking about this, the better, because I see it now to the point where uh, older women and men as a whole do not give a flying fuck about what a 25-year-old girl has to say. No one cares what she says. And you should have never cared from the start unless she's married with children.
Yes. So you say, I totally agree with you actually, and yeah, I mean, I mean, it is good that these points are being brought out, whether it's through the red pill space or other spaces, within the whole of the manosphere. But that style of it just rubs me the wrong way. I don't
Oh,
really.
totally. Because it's not. It's like talking sports. It's so easy to talk about these things about women's solipsistic nature,
Yes.
women not taking responsibility, no, the rate of divorce, women taking up white collar jobs. It's very easy. You can run through the gambit of statistics. You can talk about it. Again, I did it. I did it ad nauseum for years. But there's only so much. It can only go so far. And me and I am used to this state, and I still do to this day. I'm not here to give you solutions. The solutions really is somewhat of the MGTOW mindset, which is it's a discipline. You have to focus on yourself. That doesn't mean waking up at 5 a.m. and running 3 miles before you start working 10 hours a day. I'm not saying that. But through gradual, small, subtle changes throughout your life, that'll eventually, you know, turn your, I guess, the kind of the baseline of your brain or your mindset to a much more positive more positive outlook on yourself and the world.
Yes, I see. I agree with that. I agree with that as a prescription for the individual, and I think that's a much more, much healthier take on this, to improve one's, overall quality of life and life satisfaction. As we said, it should be about the man building his life, and then the woman being in addition. Well, I guess
Right.
in the yeah, I mean, I guess I'm splitting hairs here. In addition, but then again, when you do have a family and you're married, well, your in-laws and your whole family becomes a large focus of your life. But then again, even me, I'm married. I still have my personal interests. I mean, even you talking to you about these topics, my YouTube channel, my gym hobby, which I do at 5 a.m. because I have to
Right.
actually. I would much prefer to go after work and be social and have no time limits. But I love the gym. I love being physically active. I do that for myself, and I still hang out with all my guy friends. And I agree on that. But as far as the plight of men as a whole, which I personally am concerned with, is that I don't think I am also you said that you are familiar with Devlin because you read his book, which is a great book. Now, inside of the Sexual Utopia and Power book, there is an essay the essay that you read in that book, rotating polyandry and its
Yeah.
enforcers,
Yeah. So there's a good one. Yep.
in which he reviews two books. Female Infidelity by Michelle Langley, and that's an eye opener right there. And secondly, another crushing eye opener is the review of Dr. Stephen Baskerville's. And I want to talk to this man one day, actually. I hope he will. His book, a review of it called Taken into Custody, which is about the life destroying and family destroying divorce regime, which the red pill. I'm glad that they do actually mention the divorce regime. And that's also a prime driver, what I believe, of MGTOW, because of the dangers of divorce, is that The red pill space says, typically says half your shit. And maybe some of them are aware of this and they should be aware of this. We should all be aware of this. Is that not only is it taking half your stuff, it is, like Baskerville said, and Devlin recognized from his works, is that it is the kidnapping of children, it is wage garnishment, it is bank account raids. There is even a surveillance of movements. You can actually be told where you must work. You can be charged with. You can actually you can have false allegations of domestic abuse. A man could wind up homeless. A man's life can be, let's say, ruined, and in turn have the trajectory of the children ruined. And also, this creates a lot of single mother homes, and single mother homes are the basis of all kinds of social pathologies, the social pathologies of fatherlessness, right? So now, what you said is good for the individual, and if all men do that, it would be good for us collectively, improving your life, focusing on professions and other individual pursuits. Now, as far as us as a group, I am in agreement with Dr. Baskerville in that whining only goes so far, meaning everybody could complain until we all drop dead of female antisocial behavior that is featured on TikTok, on Instagram, in the sex work such as OnlyFans, and the podcasts such as the Fresh and Fit Show and the whatever podcast. However, until there are changes in law, and even laws that we once did have, where is all this whining going to go? Meaning, if family law is not changed, if there are, let's say, even other laws which I don't know if are necessary or not, such as, let's say, obscenity laws, or the permission for girls, and I'm going to say girls, to have access to birth control as young as 13 years old. All these things were, let's say, not legal before. And even a man does not have ownership of his children now. The state technically owns the children. Now, my wife and I, we're on the same page. My wife and I actually is familiar with Dr. Baskerville and Roger Devlin. We are on the same page here. My family thinks the same way that we do, and so does her family. But until we get the other aspect of law changed, are you in agreement with this, meaning that that law has to be implemented or reversed, and the whining has limits? Do you think that we need just to implement?
No, yeah, if you're just talking about it, it's not going to do anything. No.
Right. See, a lot of men will say that the government should be completely out of marriage. Now, I am now, upon learning about marriage more, what the purpose of marriage is for, and like Dr. Baskerville and Dr. Daniel Amneas, the author of the Case for Father Custody and the Garbage Generation, has said, is that the primary purpose of marriage, not the romantic model where it's two lovebirds just in love and having a lot of sex, and the romantic model, so to speak. It is for the establishment of fatherhood first and foremost, because the father is the weakest link in the family. And if there was no law that is either the society law or the church or some other religious institution saying that this man owns these children, this woman cannot take off with the children, as discussed in rotating polyandry of women pretty much kidnapping children from men, I believe the law should only exist for that reason alone. After the government establishes who is the father of a child, and it does not have to be the biological father, it's simply going to be the man that is involved in fatherhood and raising the children. After that, the government should butt out of whether you're going to homeschool or public school, how you're going to, let's say, discipline the children. I don't mean abuse, though. All other matters within the family remain at the father's dictation, first and foremost. What do you think of that concept? Because a lot of men are saying that the government should be out of marriage completely, but if the government is totally out of marriage, meaning 100%, then who establishes ownership in fatherhood?
Usually any type of religious organization does.
Right, but you see, go ahead. I don't interrupt.
No, that's it. I mean, that's who was doing it for 2,000 years. It wasn't. Religion was government at one time. In a lot of other countries, it is. Though it's kind of like a hybrid where they're infused with one another because politics is downwind of culture, and usually culture is a prerequisite to religion. I should take that. Religion comes first, then culture. The religion kind of sets the drum beat for the culture one way or another. And in the United States, it's this I don't know, this, I call it Mickey Mouse Christianity that's got some type of so the hallmarks of Shakespeare, Victorian era bullshit. I truly think that most of our problems in the U.S. stem from romantic literature from
Yes.
500 years ago, from England. I truly believe that, because if you actually go to England and you meet British men and British women, they act absolutely nothing like American. The dynamics with British and British men and women are nowhere near similar to what we have in the United States. It's totally, totally different. And across Europe, the whole spectrum of European countries, it is completely different the way they interact with one another. America is just living off these like Shakespeare, romance novels, coupled with Disney, and it's bizarre. And for whatever reason, the the Mickey Mouse churches gravitate and embody this. It's bizarre. It's so alien to me. It really truly is. And unfortunately, again, regardless of where you come from in the United States or whatever your background is, religion or ethnicity, you've also been indoctrinated to the point with the Disney culture. And
Yes.
I don't think Walt Disney knew what he was doing. He was just making the guy was just making movies for little girls. He didn't
Right.
think they'd actually take it literally.
Yes, because even a lot of men that we probably you and I meet, they say, before they become educated on sexual dynamics, they'll actually say, literally say, I had the Disney view of love and marriage. They'll actually say Disney view. So I've actually sometimes joke with my friends. I've called that the America is the land of the simp or land of the cook, because it seems to me that America, I have not traveled that much, but it seems to me that the America is the world's foremost gynocracy. It just seems like that.
100%. Even when I was living in Asia, the European guys, all they would do is complain about American men. Stop bringing your Disney culture to these women in the other countries, because you're running away from what you don't like, yet you're bringing it to the other parts of the world and ruining it for the rest of the guys.
Yeah, see, because that's why also, and I'm bopping around here a little bit, is that I always go to Devlin's book because it has such a profound effect on me. Is that I particularly like the essay, "The Question of Female Masochism," which is contrary to the views of, it's contrary to the Disney view. So, so with that said, we could go forward, and we discussed. I'm just reviewing this list here. We went a little out of order, but it flowed very well, and I hope it flows like this for the rest of our talk here. We went over the divorce regime. We went over the purpose of marriage. Now, actually, yeah, this would segue right into it. Now, the romantic model. There's been some talk about. I think a lot of men are realizing that the romantic model didn't work in marriage either, meaning that the focus on attraction, the focus on so-called game, what the incels, what I believe, not incels, the black pill theory. I don't like the word incel, and people have heard me say that the word incel has got to go. I believe I'm going to use the word womenless men, because I find that the incel term right now has lost its original meaning, which simply at the beginning, as far as I'm concerned, maybe I'm wrong, simply meant a man who was involuntarily without a woman. Then eventually it became a slur word for any man that is having difficulty finding a woman. It's an insult at this point. And then eventually it became a term for a man that people just don't like. I mean, you can be intimate with a woman and hours later a man will call you an insult for saying something that he didn't like. So now, do you think that there's been damage also to these sexual dynamics? Because from my understanding, dating is only, let's say, 100 years old, meaning that before that, it was had more of a matchmaking flavor, family involvement. Let's say not say totally arranged, where you have, let's say, two people who don't even know each other and the families are instructing them to marry, and there's no attraction and there's no say. I believe, from what I've told, and also even certain ethnicities still do this, maybe in like even an unannounced way, is that it was semi-arranged, or families knew good fits for different mates, and they paired people up. And there was really not such a thing as girlfriend and boyfriend. There was really not such a thing as dating. There was not really such a thing as, quote, relationships. See, to me, the boyfriend and girlfriend dynamic, or not the dynamic, the construct or the title, to me means almost nothing. It is inconsequential, probably for reasons that you and I that could get into a little bit. Do you think that some of this damage has been done because of the focus on romance, the focus of what people call the tingles, or just simply sexual.
The puppy love.
Yeah, yeah. Meaning that people get into this. These people get married from these thrills, and what it does to the feelings you get down there. And then when those feelings are evaporated, there's nothing left. There's nothing practical left. Whereas when, let's say, people had a more future-oriented and family-oriented view of marriage, it had the practicality and the attraction. Meaning that, let's say, in matchmaking, you can pair two people up. If they're not attracted to one another, or it's the dates there, there's no they don't want to go out with each other. Basically, you call it off. You try to match them up with someone else, and eventually, these people from these certain ethnic groups or religious communities, they marry someone. So it's, let's say, a soft arrangement. And we used to have courtship, and the father used to have a say in who, even in who spoke to his teenage daughter. And I know that a lot of people have a problem with that, but from my experience from the 90s, and I'm going to continue saying this because I have a daughter also, a daughter and a son, that if there is no, and I'm going to use the word that people don't like, if there is no ownership of one's children, and there is no fatherly protection of the family, not all the time, in many cases, the biggest lowlives, the scum of the earth, will come near one's daughter and cause many problems for this daughter, even criminal acts on her, and abuse. And many people take this as, what are you a tradcon? Are you a conservative who is going to control the sexuality of his daughter? And in my experience, from what I've witnessed or known about, the criminality done to young girls warrants this male protection. I think you see where I'm going here without too many details.
It's up to the individual what they make of their lives. You should know better.
But
Whatever it's what she wants.
right,
Who
right,
are you to judge?
right. But you see, I think that it's a fair choice to say that I don't want people near my 13-year-old daughter, and I don't want men who are in their 20s near her. I mean, she's not 13 now, but these are things that are very disgusting that did take place. I know women who this did take place for, right? So anytime that we talk about sexuality, I believe, and sexuality shapes the society, and I talked about this with Andy actually, this kind of disconnected, disembodied way of talking about sex, meaning that it's only about the sex act. It's not what happens around the sex act leading up to it or the consequences of it, such as an unintended pregnancy with a deadbeat scumbag that's going to run off and leave a daughter pregnant. So basically, like Baskerville and Devlin have said, is that fathers have no say in the marriage now, have no say about who comes near their family.
Right.
And if someone says this, they're accused of being a tradcon.
Yep.
You see what I'm going here?
Yep. Yep. 100%. The father's kind of been neutered. And that's there's a lot of reasons why that is. A lot of it has to do with the wife. Leave her alone. He's actually really nice. Yo, he just broke into the car down the street. What do you mean? He's really nice to me, and
Yes.
he brought me milk the other day. He's not that bad. He didn't do nothing. So a lot of it has to do with the mother undermining the father's enforcement mechanisms because of mothers don't ever say no. Like, anytime my dad said no to something, I'd always go to my mother to override my father. That's because he doesn't want to deal with her bitching and moaning and being mad for forever how long because of this argument over who she's dating.
Yes. But you see, this leads to very severe problems. And I think that even some coon hounds and womanizers don't like that either, because they do want a sexually unregulated society. They want a society where they can just simply seduce women and the men are out of the picture. So I'm not going to mention names here, but there are people in the men's space who are only focused on seduction, and they kind of like this deregulated. They like this deregulated society where other men do not.
Well, I think a lot. So I interviewed that Alex playing with Fire guy.
Yes.
And he seemed like a nice guy. I understand it's more around a business model, so he watched his P's and Q's when doing a conversation with me, and I respect that. And I kind of get the underlying message, which is you have to make do with what's in front of you. So his approach to it is like get the woman first, then worry about everything else second, and to take it to go in the direction that you would prefer, that doesn't exist anymore.
No, it
So
doesn't.
you're gonna just have to adapt to the surroundings. Like for example, if she's not putting out uh, by the second or third date, like just a guy has to move on because you're in, because most men know she's not a virgin. She probably has put out and had a one night stand. Why
Yes.
am I not worthy of that also? So she's forced to put out one way or another because she's not a virgin. She's put out on a first date at some point. Here's another guy. I like him. I'm not. The guy's not going to tolerate waiting around for me to put out for him. And sex is more like sexual intercourse is far more important than actually getting to know someone at the current state we're in.
Yes, but I am not going to be a prude here because I'm going to say that, yeah, I'm going to admit that screwing a bunch of women is very thrilling and it's very satisfying. However, we're mature human beings here. So even if something feels good, I do not think we should all the time act on it.
Right, men are mature, women are not.
Right, right,
So
exactly.
again, we're kind of with this bend don't break, where okay, she's got an attention span of a gnat. I got my chance right here and now. I better capitalize on it because I don't know the next time I'm gonna get some action.
I see, I see. See, I've thought about that too, actually, because what I noticed also, even when I was young, is that, like I told Andy and I told Ray, is that I was kind of going through by a rule book that people were not playing by, meaning that, again, this is not a brag. I am not a 10% man. I was never a 10% guy. But when I was younger, there were a few incidents where women, in which actually two popular, very pretty women and another cute woman, who I thought, let's say, had more SMV, even though we didn't have that term in 1997, I said to myself, well, damn, this woman likes me. And one of them was we were almost about to do you know what, right? But she had a boyfriend, right? And I said to myself, well, we got to stop this because she has a boyfriend, right? And I did not move forward because these women had boyfriends. But looking back on it, I say to myself, well, every pretty woman had a boyfriend. What were you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Be the gentleman and not have a girlfriend, right? So that actually happened to me by being a gentleman and by playing by a code of honor with other men, a code of conduct. Well, I wound up lonely sometimes. So I think that there's like this chokehold here, meaning that even if you are a man who wants to control himself, or let's say not think it's the wisest thing to do to have sexual relations with a woman you don't know well, but if that's not established in this kind of like uh unregulated environment, the man could find himself with no woman. I mean, I actually met women through, let's say, those initial dating sites, not the apps like Match.com or what was the other one, eHarmony.
Yep.
And I met many women actually. And there was a woman who actually one time said on the phone after the first date, said, "Why didn't you kiss me?" And I said to myself, I think I actually said to her, actually, I said, I didn't know I was I was supposed to kiss someone that I've known for a total of 3 hours, meaning that I kind of was in the mood to get to know her. I didn't know if a kiss was necessary. You know what I'm saying? So I see what you're saying in that conversation with playing with fire. Yes, but
That's just the way it is now. And again, you can stand on your morals and be like, whatever. I'm not fucking her on the first date, and I want to get to know her first and see what the red flags are and stuff. But at the end of the day, you're trying to nut, and you don't know the next time. So like the whole concept now is um you have to be trigger happy. If you spot red flags early on, you gotta axe it, or you got to be rid of this woman immediately. And that's very easy for a guy who's got a Rolodex. Today, guys don't have a Rolodex of women, nor do you have time to have a Rolodex of women. So you're gonna run the gambit. You're gonna fuck her. You're gonna see you're what you're hoping. It's a very caveman mindset. You're hoping you can mold her and kind of like sway her in a direction that's more suitable to you. But as the older and older she gets, the less likely she's going to be able to be moldable, malleable to your liking. So you wind up having sex with her, and you keep fucking it till the wheels fall off, and you try your best to um, not walk on eggshells, and you're less likely to say no to things, because as soon as you say no, she's just gonna get rid of you, and she'll find another guy that's gonna say yes to everything. A lot of it's unfortunately, the U.S. Everything is just a lie. So what you've done is you just lied to an entire generation, and you continue to lie to women uh, to this day about the way the world works, because you're trying to shield them from a lot of bad things. Well, why aren't trannies good? Why can't he identifies as a woman? Like, again, what's wrong with love is love? And then you start explaining, and you're being pragmatic about these things. She's not a pragmatic being, so you cannot explain this to someone who's emotionally with oscillating emotions.
Right. You see, I know what you're saying, but what I'm trying to get at here is that it seems like this, and again, I don't have a totally well behaved past per se. I'm not saying I have not indulged, like I told Andy, I did indulge to a degree with my younger years, actually. I'm not saying this for a brag, I simply did. But now that I'm mature and I'm seeing what's going on with men and the kind of debauchery I was around or witnessed as a young person, and seeing the outcomes of this kind of, like we said, like Devlin, the whole point of his book, that this sexual utopia has not worked out. It has been a dystopia. It has created a lot of misery for people.
Yeah.
If you partake, not you, but if a man partakes because he feels left out of the of not having a woman at all, whether it is to have a fulfilling relationship in a family, or again to satisfy these sexual urges that are hard to control when given the opportunity. But how does this course correct then? If there's going to be so-called seduction game, pickup game, this further it creates this vicious cycle where in which nothing is corrected. Nothing is if you don't go back to, let's say, a more regulated environment, nothing works. The marriage does not work properly. The courts are just bound up with feminists running the show because everybody wants to yield to the women, because everybody wants sex from the women.
Right.
I mean that even Baskerville touched upon this, is that even conservatives and Republicans are wimps in the face of women.
Yep.
They're utter cucks, utter simps. And like he said, it is because these men are afraid to piss off the women because they're not going to get sex from the women.
Exactly.
So
there you go.
Right. So how do we get out of the spiral? I mean, if we're all going to be a bunch of, like you said, cavemen who are trying to do all this gesture maxing and performing and humiliation rituals to get into women's pants, like, well, there's no water here. And then also a lot of this sexual deregulation creates the kind of ghettos that we see today. This is what creates the very single mommies that the red pillars are constantly whining about. And now people could say, well, use protection. There are all kinds of protection. No. Yes, some men use it. But if you go to our local ghettos here in New York, or even a few in Long Island, or wherever throughout the country, this is from sexual freedom. It's from being sexually free. So it's having sex out of the boundaries of marriage or a serious relationship, and the state supports the children. The state spends, according to Paul Elam, and I think that Paul Elam is I think that he's a good fact finder. I trust him as a source. He said that there are 421 billion federal bucks spent on single women and their mommies, which is probably mostly the women in these communities that we're talking about who are simply humping criminals. So we could say that people could use protection, but really all this is caused by the sexual so-called freedom that we have. And like Devlin said again, dystopia. It has created much misery. Plenty of men, even men that we would not call ghetto men, create single moms and fatherless children. So you see I think that you see where I'm going with this. How do we get out of this then? How do we get out of this by seduction? Or how do we get out of this by being striving to be a 10% man? I don't even know if anybody has the way out of this.
Because unfortunately, the way out of it is not pleasant to discuss. That's why it is extremely dark. It is not good to try to undo what has been done. There's small things that can help.
Yes.
I don't know, banning OnlyFans, banning Instagram,
Yes.
social media is to a certain extent banning it. I think YouTube is predominantly used by men, um, and you for educational purposes and entertainment. It's not necessarily to gaze at a woman's navel. YouTube, for that matter. I think pornography is kind of pornography is more of a symptom, and I don't necessarily blame pornography as much as one should for a lot of our problems.
Right.
Because if you were getting some, you wouldn't be watching porn,
Right.
or if she was attractive, right?
Yes. That's
Yeah. So like when I was in a relationship, the last thing I was like thinking about was watching porn because I have someone here, great. Um, but to undo where we're at right now, yeah, it's not good. It's not.
right. 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 But do you think that, and I ask Andy this also, do you think that the measures that it would take, for example, if there was so-called enforced monogamy, which I believe is the only way out of this, and I don't say that because I think that that enforced monogamy is something, let's say, it's not thrilling. It is not. It is simply practicality. It is what some would say boring. Do you think that some people scoff at this kind of tradcon take? And I'm not a tradcon. I have beefs with the tradcon too. Is that because it's boring? Meaning that if it fell under family authority to steer people together, to avoid mismating, to avoid some debauchery and hedonism in the process, do you think that some people would not like this because it would make things very rigid and stiff again? Meaning that, again, to me, the seducer wants the deregulated society simply to screw women. The seducer primarily does not care about marriage or children. He cares about seduction. And there are many of these men, well, maybe not many, because most men I don't even think can seduce that many women, actually. Do you think it's because it would be boring or stiff?
Well, unfortunately, like I'm talking to you now. It's Saturday. I didn't have anything really going on. It's dreary out. The temperature's awful.
Yeah.
Not every day's going to be sunshine and power boating and brunches and stuff like that. So most of your life is just going through the motions, working, paying bills, eating, talking to friends. That's 90% of your life. And this constant never ending summer as a infinite summer, that doesn't exist. Again, it's all media. It's all bullshit you see on television. For whatever reason, again, people have, and again, women have. I've starting to realize a lot of American women lack a core identity, and I'm starting to toy with the idea that the overwhelming majority of American women are in fact borderline. We just don't acknowledge the fact that most of our women are in fact socially ill, and we've embraced that social illness as normal. So whatever in one country they would find taboo or antisocial, you have basically the borderline now is your culture.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say. So what you viewed it as taboo 20, 30 years ago, it is now just the norm.
Yes.
So as far as like, are you miss the YOLO effect, and do you find like the enforced monogamy as boring? It's not, because I grew up in a very traditional household for the most part,
Yeah.
and my cousins were around me all the time, my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, and that was a lot of fun.
Yes.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
I took it for granted. I didn't realize that most families were basket cases around me. I thought everyone had a mom and dad, and your cousins and stuff were all around the corner, and you can walk over and see them and stuff like that. My mother was not necessarily. My mother had a lot of shoes, but my mother could give a flying fuck about a nice car. She could care less about those
Right.
things.
Right.
So now it's to the point where if you're going to have this type of enforced monogamy, you have to get rid of all the um, I don't know how to describe it, but everything that's going to try undermining that first. You have to get rid of all these externalities that are hyper focused on destroying that. And right now, it seems to be technology. Technology seems to be the first, like the tip of the iceberg, and then you work your way down to all these other things like family divorce courts and such.
Yeah. Yeah. because even though I'm married, I at this point what I know about the divorce regime, I do not I recognize marriage as an integral part of a sophisticated, high trust society and high investment parenting that brings up the next generation to be pro-social, productive people, well-adjusted people. That's necessary, right? But that's the institution of marriage, which people don't look at it these days. They look at, again, marriage from a very individualistic standpoint. The rest of the family simply is orbiting around the parents and the children, not like what you said. For example, I do have a very tight family with my in-laws and even like you're saying, these very wholesome things that bring a smile to my face. Like even on the my son's first birthday, the first year, I had 100 people at my house. Like I'm not joking. There were people in my backyard, inside my house, on the front lawn. It was a great time. We have all these parties for my kids that both of their birthdays were in the summer. So we have these huge get-togethers or July 4th get-togethers of my in-laws, all kinds of things that are very joyous and wholesome for the next generation, all of our children. So I personally don't think that just sexual hedonism can even measure up to this. You know what I'm saying? And also the connection that the marriage brings to you, the connection that the marriage brings you to the community around you. But until we change the divorce regime, I can't, like in good faith, tell a man, like, you definitely should get married, while understanding that marriage is an important institution in a society that must be corrected these days. So I definitely am on board with what you're saying, but and then after this question, I would like to go more into depth of other challenges facing men besides the whole sexuality and marriage and mating and dating. Is another thing here I have here. Let me see this. Okay, you know this fascination with the Chad and Tyrone avatars?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I was discussing this with other people also that and the way that you're, I mean, from what you're expressing to me, you seem very knowledgeable on these topics, actually, all kinds of history and politics and sexuality, is that, and family, is that now that we have a worship, this kind of fascination with the Chad and Tyrone character, back in a long time ago when Chad was called a cad actually, these cads were dealt with very severely. Some of them were lynched.
Yep.
Some of them were
Yep.
had legal sanctions put on them.
Yep.
Some of them cast out of society. So
Yep. Yeah, I know.
yes, this is necessary to keep a normal social order. And people will say this. They'll say, this is another thing that some even men say about other men, because a lot of men hate other men these days, which is very disturbing. I mean, people have this picture of misandrous being female. No. There are a lot of misandric men out there now. So when you say these harsh martial measures to keep society in order, you know, that what a man would not like a homewrecker, literally a homewrecker, coming near his family. So the man did what he had to do, or even the community would just round this fucker up, right? I personally am not against measures to keep society in order. I really don't bat an eye at that. Why do you think that men these days, maybe if you have an answer, I'd like to get your input because you're an interesting person with good takes on this. Do you think that we've become softer on these topics? The severity, mean that they'll say things like if a man takes another man's wife, it is not on the other man. What are you, insecure? Are you insecure that another man took your woman? You see the kind of talk going around the manosphere also, right?
I do.
Yes.
But I'm try to rephrase the question. Are you saying that we're just softer on dealing with these type of men?
Yeah, meaning that men who are just seeking to run around screwing young women and impregnating some of them and leaving the burden on third parties, such as our tax dollars, the criminality that occurs, or social deviances that occur from these kinds of unions because of the single mommy, fatherless child dynamic that results from this. Why shouldn't we take harsh measures to avoid this?
You can't.
No, we can't. We can't now. But why do some men? Why do some men get let's say they get annoyed by that concept? They think that, again, it would be too rigid of a society if men kept other men regulated.
Well, it's strange because it's weird. As soon as again, this goes back to saying no to something. Oh, you're being rigid, and you're being a conservative or something like that. Again, it's when you say no that's when it becomes a problem. So we're at the point where it's egalitarianism run amok, where everyone can be anything at any time. So the if she chooses to leave you to go be with the drug dealer, well, that's her choice. A lot of it circles back to the whole hedonistic individual letting their passions run a while, and also because of the lack of like external threats. There's always going to be food. There's always going to be electricity. There's always going to be a roof over your head. That's kind of where it's to the point where she can get away with it and know that she's always going to have some type of personal safety net. And the same goes for that unscrupulous character you're discussing.
Yes, exactly. These are nuisances, which is why I have a problem with the whole seduction dynamic. Just men running amok, trying to just screw women. Just
Well, listen, you look at dating apps, you can be married and be on a dating app. There's no vetting whatsoever on a dating app. You don't know if he's had children. You don't know if he has a couple divorces underneath them. You don't know if he's paying child support. You don't even know if he's homeless or whatever it might be.
yes,
So you're allowing a publicly traded company dictate dating habits for an entire I should say middle class society.
yeah,
And to be more poignant about it, more directed towards white middle class. Because if you go on the dating app, you do not see Hispanics, you don't see Muslims, you don't see any Asian Americans. It seems to be solely directed at people of European descent.
yes. It does seem like that actually. I grew up around many ethnicities in New York City. Yeah, they run things differently actually, and they also have not all of them, but if you look, let's say, at some of the Asian communities, they have tend to have less social problems, less social deviance. I do know there are challenges in all communities, but yeah, like you said, it really seems like this.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's hyper focused on a specific demographic.
yes, you're right. And before we go into the topic of what I said before, is that this when we say this word insecure, I mean, you'll see this all over X/Twitter. You'll see some of this in the discourse of the online spaces regarding the matter we're talking about. Is that this whole thing of the body count issue, for example, that's a big buzz thing these days. Is that the man who was concerned about a body count is insecure? But my view is this, though, and again, I'm going to relate to refer to the great work "Sexual Utopia and Power" again by Roger Devlin, because I did know some things before reading this book, but he put things in such a good summary. Is that and such shed light on some of the consequences of people not regulating themselves, meaning that they'll call men insecure for judging a woman's body count, but the men calling other men insecure are not married to adulterous women. Meaning it's fun and games to say, hey, dude, what are you insecure? If a woman has a high body count, it's nothing to you. But if we don't go by this track record and a man does marry such a woman, that man could have his life ruined. He could actually be funding the adultery of his ex-wife. That means the wife can take off, live with another man, with the children, and this guy is going to have to continue supporting this adulterous woman. Not only that, there are men now who, if they are around the child for 2 years in a marriage or in a cohabitation or whatever it is, if he's simply around this child that might not even be biologically his, and after the 2 year mark finds out it is another man's child, he is on the hook for child support subsidization for 16 more years, right? So, what do you think of this? Do you think that this is another gaslighting of men, that men should not be concerned about a woman's past, that it's nothing? But again, like I said, to hit it home once more, the people who are saying that it's insecurity that is at work are not the people that are married to adulterous
Well, she's got more experience, am I right?
right, right. But you see, it's not about that. They'll say
That's it's that would be I'm quoting a
yeah,
boomer.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid you're not going to measure up? Are you afraid that your sausage is not as big as the next man's? See, that's all funny, but when your old man's life is ruined, that's a different story. You see, you know where I'm going here.
Yeah, I don't think I think there's a cap. I'd say if a woman's had more, I'd say depending on her age, it varies, but what it is not necessarily that she slept with other guys, is that she's cohabitated with other men. So her experiences with men becomes jarring if she's been with so like a cornucopia of different type of men of all different groups of different races and stuff. So her view of the opposite sex it becomes jarring. So when you come into the picture, her past experiences are gonna set a precedence for your relationship with her.
Yes. Yes. You see,
That's the problem.
yes, you see, I don't necessarily think it's the number per se. I think it's what my friend and I call the professional girlfriend. You get these women, well, let's just call them females because whether it's girls or women, whatever it is we talk about, is that you get these women who have a so-called boyfriend and I put that in quote that term because to me that's a meaningless term. In most cases, not all, but most cases, the boyfriend term has no consequence, specifically because what we're getting into here is that you'll meet women in this so-called modern era. They'll have a boyfriend from the age of 13 all the way into adulthood, and there's boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend. And this track record is supposed to not hit home with men because the man is doesn't want to be insecure, but this is the way that promiscuity to me expresses itself in women, meaning that I don't really think that so many women are having, this so-called the vulgar term triple digit body count. I believe it's more of this chain of events where it's like the term rotating polyandry, guy after guy after guy after guy. Why are there so many guys here? What happened with all these men? You know what I'm trying to say? I mean that how would a guy not be on guard for that? Meaning that would it be unrealistic to think that okay, I'm going to be a husband boyfriend. I'm going to marry her and just be another boyfriend to her. And then, like what Michelle Langley described in that essay we went over, the woman gets bored after a few years and takes off. But men should not be aware of this, that men, with their money and children on the line, their houses, their families, all the bonds between the two families, to not be on guard about this, that you're insecure because you're concerned about this.
Well, again, you're talking about marriage. Marriage in its current form is completely obsolete.
Yeah.
And the new immigrants that come over after 2 or 3 generations, they wind up going. They're in the rotation now
Yes.
of neoliberalism and such. So you bring another group of whatever group from another country over. Their families are all super tight. They all get married, and then it starts to dissipate from there. And then you bring in another group. They reproduce. They get lost in the sauce on neoliberalism. This Pax Americana, and then they too wind up getting thrown into the rotation of the Rick and Morty Wild Wing Entertainment. So again, it's in America, the marriage is totally shot. It is
Right.
again, and it goes back to what you said earlier that there's no enforcement mechanism. So what are you actually doing? Oh, you now sign a piece of paper where there's a cop in your bedroom. Good job. That's great, man.
Right.
And
Right.
she'll be on board for it because as soon as you say no to something, she can have you tased on your front lawn.
Yeah, exactly. There's no enforcement. And what I forgot to tell you is that when you said that it was basically, let's say, the religious institution that would, let's say, just establish fatherhood, establishment of the marriage per se, um, like you said, that like, and also like Dr. Baskerville said, is that there are no priests showing up or other religious figures showing up at a divorce court saying that, this is a sacrilegious institution. You're interfering with this family because the woman just simply fled with the kids and the man is not in fault. We do not honor no fault divorce in this manner, right? How many religious figures are doing that in the United States? So it's really the state that really owns, that is running the show of the marriage.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. And now, what I want to get into here, I have a few more questions. I mean, I love your takes on this. You're very knowledgeable on all these things. Is that this occurrence of male unemployment by their own volition? I mean, I'm also of the notion, and again, I wouldn't want to live like this personally, but I can empathize with this because I empathize with the plight of young men these days, which is why I'm talking to you and all these other people now, and why I want to get in this space. Is that I look at it like this: is that people like Nicholas Eberstadt or others or others can say the whole notion, the whole meme, which is very lame at this point, men in their mom's basement eating Cheetos. Where did this Cheetos thing come up from anyway? But I don't know where that came from. The Cheetos thing, the stained underwear, watching pornography, and playing video games. The stereotype of the stereotype of the NEET, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, I personally don't think that most. I think there's hardly any men that even fit that meme. It's a
Oh
gross.
no,
Yeah.
it's an obscene amount.
Yeah.
You have
Oh,
no, it is a huge demographic, man.
see, then,
Huge.
see, then you're
Oh my
informing.
God.
So then that just shows right here how I need to inform myself of this if I'm going to talk about these topics, because I want to be educated myself. I don't want to just spout out my opinions and
I would say about almost half the people I grew up with are 13th graders, NEETs.
okay, then I stand corrected. I was wrong.
It's all right, dude.
Yeah, so
I don't expect you to know what the life of a 25-year-old
right,
is
right,
right now.
right. But I want to get into that. I'm glad you're informing me of this, because I really do want to know this. Um is that I personally would not want to live like that per se, but I am also of the notion where if a society is not giving back to its younger members, well, if a society is not giving back to people in general, and it's a two-way street. You see, I personally don't believe in the whole Kennedy notion, and maybe some people will be mad at me. That's fine if they're mad at me. I'm going to have some opinions that people don't like. At this point, the notion of ask not what your country could do for you, ask what you could do for your country. No, 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 no. To me, it's a two-way street. I'm not playing the rules that other people are not playing by. You see what I'm saying? And I don't live like that in my personal life per se, but I could see why someone would live like that. I mean, if your society is not taking care of you, if your society is mistreating its younger men primarily, why would we expect them to be productive? They're not going to have families. The inflation is out of freaking control. The cost of housing is out of control. The cost of supporting a family, the cost of gesture maxing, the cost of the humiliation ritual of dating. I don't think it's an irrational course if you don't want to participate. But then again, what do you think of that? Do you think it's reasonable to be a NEET now?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I do
it
too.
is.
Yes, it's reasonable.
Think of it this way. Some men like going to prison. The reason why they like going to prison is because they have no responsibility.
Yeah,
You have food's there, it's on time, you lift weights, you have a roof over your head, it's heated, you have a little social group, and they like it that way. NEETs are a kind of a mirroring of the prison population. Just instead of being in prison, they're in their parents' home, or they're on, maybe some type of government housing, and you get your check once a week, or your parents are subsidizing your food and everything else for you. So that's that it's they don't want responsibility, because who the fuck does? Responsibility sucks.
so you see, but it's because it's very funny because
And what, now you want me responsible for the country? Are you on
right,
drugs,
right,
dude?
exactly, right. So you see, this is where I have a beef with these people. Chris Williamson, Scott Galloway, Jordan Peterson, is that they like uh, they seem to want to help men, but why aren't they looking at the core issues though? Meaning that I think that these people are
Because you're gonna shine a light on
right,
women, and you
right,
can't do that.
right. But I think that these people are definitely smarter than their well. These people are talking to people maybe that are not intelligent either. So, or have not looked into the matter the way that you and I have and others have. Is that these people I think know better. They do know better. How could they not? I mean, um,
It
Galloway.
depends on who's giving them a $200,000 check to do I don't know, some type of dissertation at Brown University. It's about who's paying them and such. If they start talking about women's body count and women can't be astronauts, they're not going to get paid, and they're going to get their social media account deleted and all that type of stuff.
Yes, that's what I think it is, and I really don't
For
want.
us, we have no real stake in the game. I'm not getting paid to have this conversation with you.
Right.
See what I'm
Exactly.
saying? If my
Yeah.
channel goes down, all right, I'll find something else to do, or I'll start another channel and build it from there. These guys have a lot more to lose if they start talking about these things. The
Right.
problem is that the people that are funding them or backing them don't want things to change for the better. They like the status quo because the last thing a lot of the elites, cloud people, shadow government, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
it's to their benefit to make sure that the population stays atomized and atomized, disorganized, and poor.
Yes, I agree with it actually, and also because I saw this one very good interview actually. If you want to watch it, you can. Very good interview with Mary Eberstadt on the Chris Williamson show, and she was shedding light about how the sexual revolution was an absolute disaster, and she called the sexual revolution a revolution of human deletion. And uh, we're gonna have these talking head Republicans talk about how the birth rate is down just by giving a mommy $5,000. And I've said this to Andy and Ray, the $5,000 is simply going to cover one night in a hospital. That's not really a stipend for raising a child. I mean, if a woman goes to a hospital and has a C-section or IV fluids or pain medication or a specialist walk in once, there's your $5,000. That's not going to do anything to raise a birth rate. But they never get into this. If the average man cannot even find a date, how are you?
Right.
What are we gonna
Let's get a date before we
have?
start talking about marriage and kids.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So they don't want to look into that. And do you think that like Andy has a great term for this? He calls the hypergamy. Obviously, it's unrestrained and out of control. And serious societies took measures to control hypergamy, such as the matchmaking, the dowries, father and other male member involvement, male family member involvement. There were ways to control hypergamy because they had the wisdom to know that hypergamy, when left out of control, is actually like a social threat, like we're seeing now with a collapsed birth rate and other miseries that are upon us because of this, especially as put forth in Rotating Polyandry by Roger Devlin. And so, yeah, that's a problem also. And yeah, I really don't want to put down NEETs per se. And amongst the NEETs, obviously, there are
Well, they
those.
should be put down. I mean, I don't respect it. It's not something. It's how do I say? The neat life scared the shit out of me when I was a teenager to the point where I'm constantly in fear of losing my job, even though I'm not going to lose my job, um, and all the things that I worked for. And I just see that as I, I don't I'm a person that tries my best not to rely on others as best of my ability, even though in reality you do need to depend on others, but for whatever reason, and I think that's more the millennial part of me, where it's a sign of helplessness, where this bootstrapism, and I've kind of I took it to heart at a young age, where I see these types of people, and you kind of wonder, like, wow, how do you live with yourself? And that just gives me panic attacks just thinking about them, you know?
Right.
So I don't necessarily, uh, I don't respect it, but I understand why there's so many of them.
I see what you're saying because from that perspective, yes. I mean, I will be transparent here that there is something besides the woman question, besides sociability or whatever else there is in terms of reward. There is the question of just supporting oneself and not being dependent on another person. I mean, I don't. I personally don't like depending on others. I don't want to depend on the family members or others, friends, etc., for my well-being. You know what I mean? So I'm not about that personally, which is why I probably would not be a NEET, even if I were unmarried and childless. I would not want to live like that personally. But again, I think that this NEET phenomenon is occurring because of a much larger problem. So I don't know if blame or not blame is the proper context, but there's something that's driving this. You know what I'm saying? I mean that if I mean, do you think that, again, I'm being repetitive here. Do you think there's something to it where if the society is not giving back, it's not the investment into it is not giving back, is that it's kind of rational not to do it? But I guess you answered that though. You said you could see the point of it.
Of what? Of the point of the neat life?
Yeah.
Zesty and fries? Uh,
Yeah.
um, well, I've started playing a mindless game when I get home from work, and it's somewhat therapeutic, and it's a way to kind of decompress from daily drudgery. Video games are it's the closest things one can do next to offing oneself because it's repetitive. There's no end to it. You're kind of just zoned out and looking at a screen. You know, so it's nice to play video games because it tunes out everything around you. And for the 13th graders, NEETs, whatever you want to call them, the more and more problems surrounding that person, the more and more they're going to double down on video games. So the older and older they get, the more and more they play the more they play video games. That's one thing I've noticed about 13th graders is that the older they get, the more they consume video games because all these alarm bells are going off around them. Dad had a stroke. Electricity bill is overdue. Property tax. Who's paying for this? Who's paying for that? So they continue to just keep playing the video game to the point where the repo man's carrying them and their computer out and throwing them into the back of a truck.
Right. But I see. But I mean,
and then I was reading a article maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. This mechanic, I think he's in Plainview or something like that, and he was like 40 years old. And his mother died. She was like 90. He was 40. He played video games. Not really. He was a mechanic, but he didn't make enough money to make the payments. And the house was in the estate's name, not under his name. And the family decided to sell the house while he was still in it. And they told him so many times, listen, we're selling the house. You got to get out. To the point where the sheriffs are there to tell him that he's got to go, and he killed his whole entire extended family for selling the house.
Oh, okay.
And I took a little bit of a dark turn, but the point is that he's a prime example of someone who is just so not in tune with everything that's going on around him. And this can be extended to this. I wrote an article called "Nostalgia Creep," where people are obsessed with Disney and Star Wars, Marvel comic books, music from the bygone era, where it keeps you in this retrograde bubble at all given times, and you're not focusing on all these other problems that are happening around you, whether geopolitically or within your own community or your family, for that matter.
Yes, I see. Very good points. And
it's all stressful. People are adverse to stress. Like, it's to the point now where anything that stresses someone out, they completely shut down, depersonalize, and they want nothing to do with whatever problem is presented in front of them.
Yeah, I actually could see that. I also believe that goes hand in hand with our the infantilization of society, and also I believe that a lot of life skills are not being transmitted into the younger generation. I do believe that's partly because of the fatherless crisis and also the educational system and just the complete infantile nature of the recreation that we have now, and also the comforts of life as well. There are certain levels of infantilization, and again, I'm not worshiping boomers, I'm not worshiping the silent generation, but I do give them credit where it's due, is that I think you alluded to this in previous podcasts, is that some of our fathers, or well, not my father particularly, as you could see, I don't have the best outlook on him. Is that our fathers generally and our grandparents were not nearly as infantilized as some of the men are these days. I actually know that there is a lot of blame put on men. Usually it is blame the man for everything these days, which is also why I'm here, because I'm concerned about this overall misandric environment. But there is an onus on us also, I believe. And with that said, there is the problem, like we said, like we're going over here, the lack of male ambition and male industriousness. Now, do you think that some of this is organic, or it's just simply the way that society unraveled because of gynocentrism, or just becoming, let's say, high on our own supply? Comfort, the food is never ending. No one's really going to starve unless they want to starve, so to speak, in this society. You might live a crappy life, but there's food somewhere, there's a bed somewhere. Maybe not for everybody. In many cases, there are resources for people who do not want to work. I mean, I had a former friend who had an apartment actually, and he literally does not work but has an apartment. So maybe you know some types of those as well. So, but do you think that there is an organic, well, actually not organic, a artificial propping up of women, meaning that an outright discrimination of men on college campuses, meaning that colleges are, let's say the ratio of the sexes on college campuses these days are 60% women, 40% men, is I have the correct from the various articles I've read in this. Is there an outright discrimination of men? Do you think there is?
No, I think guys can do all these things. They just choose not to because it doesn't speak to them. So college doesn't speak to every guy. Not every guy is meant for college. Not every guy's meant to sit in a classroom for 2 hours and listen to some old man or old woman drone on about human rights and Palestine and the Roman Empire or whatever. The it's just root learning is better suited for women. Memorizing things out of a textbook is better suited for a woman, for the most part. And a lot of the school and education system is geared towards root learning. And um, the other thing is that I think a lot of fathers and parents don't want their. Unfortunately, I've come to realize this, that the older your generation and older kind of uh, raise their daughters to mimic men, and because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that they have this belligerent emotional creature with them or amongst them, so they kind of push them out the door and try to uh, uh, kind of craft their personalities to be more of this polished corporate uh, inferior emotionalist Borg person. And that's gives rise to where you have the Karen, you have the girl boss and stuff like that, because parents are like, we have a crazy daughter. What should we do? Well, I don't want her dating the degenerate down the road. Let's send her to college. Oh, great. She went to college. She's now indoctrinated into feminism and to hate her father and hate her neighbors and stuff. Instead of taking ownership of their daughters and try to tell them how to be caring about elderly people, handicapped children and stuff like that. You don't have that anymore. Now what you've done is you've trained men to be inferior men, and at the same token you told men to be more in touch with their feelings. So again, this goes back to the neutraling of the sexes, where it's to the point where we're okaying transgenders and shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you think that I remember I told Andy this also, and I think it was Held by the Dashboard Light one time said that it actually one gets to me. I think it's kind of funny actually. Well, it's not funny, but the result of it is not funny, but the way that he put it was funny. He said that the reason why a lot of these boomer women push their daughters into college careers and high earning salaries, high earning positions rather, is because they really didn't like their husbands.
Yep.
So
There's part of that too. I see my aunt has four daughters, and she was like, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have children and I wouldn't have gotten married and stuff like that. I'm like, what? That is crazy. And I don't. Again, I think it's more of the culture at large, where they're reading articles and seeing what young women are doing. Where the women are doing all these experiences with traveling and stuff. I don't know what they're getting out of it, and. For me, for traveling was yes an experience, but also kind of to try to craft my mindset in a different way to not be so pigeonholed per se to someone of the tri-state region. Um, so if women are reading a lot of these articles about traveling and treating men like they're chapters of their lives, this is what you're gonna get. It's basically they're being indoctrinated as a whole. If we're looking at a bell curve, it's pretty much the middle swath of the bell curve. the highest part of the bell curve is all being indoctrinated to be girl bosses and to be much more antisocial with their and to treat others like they're um, triangulation, pinning one against another, and how do I put this? Taking women's nature and weaponizing it to a point where it's a detriment to everyone else. So whether it's how do I get the children away from their father, how do I pin one against another in the workspace, also at the same time how to get resources without actually cooperating with the opposite sex or getting married. And that's what you're getting. You're getting this inferior man barking orders at you instead of women, being more in tune with their femininity and using that to their advantage, which has been the case for thousands of years.
Yes, all great points actually that you point out right there. But do you think that where I want to go with this now also to wrap it up, as the last topic, we don't have to go immediately.
Yeah, no worries. I'm here. No worries, man.
Yeah, to wrap it up, meaning that like there's going to be, well, we saw some of these terrible consequences of society that we're talking about in the state of men. Is that, I mean, for example, some of the NEETs have expressed that if enough men drop out of the system will collapse and we'll get, let's say, a renewal of society. Or people predict that, let's say, if men drop out, we will start seeing serious infrastructural disorders going on. I mean, we're not going to have things fixed. Men are not going to work. They're not going to fix things. And also, these future, like, how do you see, if you do have a vision of how this is going to work out? And also, let's say there are less men in college. Like I was talking to Andy, saying that what are we going to have? We're just going to have men in the trades. The line go into the trades. So what are we going to have? The most influential positions of society, such as law, STEM, medicine, philosophy, media, entertainment, just simply having women there with almost no men there.
Well, that's what it is now.
Right. Okay. Well, you're right. That is what it is. But what we're saying here is that what you said is that maybe not every man's cut out for school. But then again, if we think of this, these universities, these places were founded by men, and the foremost giants of history that were famous lawyers, famous scientists, innovators, businessmen, industrialists. These were men. So when people are saying that men are like the kind of like the midwit dumbass sex, I mean, I don't agree with that. Meaning that I know there's more of a range in intelligence and ability between men, meaning that there's more, let's say, extremes where there are probably more.
It's not a bell curve.
Yes, there are probably more.
It's actually an upside down bell curve.
Yes, it actually is. Yes, because we might have more geniuses or more morons in our sex.
There's an equal amount of schizophrenics as there are, high IQ rocket scientists. Yes.
Yeah, but see, I do agree with it. Actually, I can see that women, people disparagingly call it, the so-called midwit sex. They are good at, repetition. And again, some women are very talented. There are women who are very smart and can do the jobs of even high-skilled men. There are women who are lawyers, scientists.
That's the exception, not the rule. But I understand what you're saying.
Right. But what I have a problem with is this image of men being a bunch of basically morons as a class. When look at all the infrastructure, look at all the amazing architecture, look at the subways, highways, all the things that I can't imagine myself doing it. This is simply a minority of men who push civilization forward. Everything from our institutions to our infrastructure and amazing artwork and amazing architecture. Well, I do take offense to that, actually. I don't want a world where men are not going to school. And this whole thing of going into the trades, I mean, I'm not a tradesman, but we do need tradesmen. You can make a very good living in that. Maybe perhaps my son, like my father-in-law is a carpenter. Maybe my son, if he has an inclination, he will go into a trade, or maybe he wants to do something in college, right? But what are we going to do? Just have a bunch of men doing a bunch of womenless men doing slave labor for for everyone else?
For women.
Yeah,
for women and for Chad and for the the people live in gated communities, like
Yeah,
in Lloyd Neck or some shit, Lloyd Harbor,
yeah, that's
Sag Harbor.
yeah, Sag Harbor,
Yeah,
Plain, these areas, Syosset,
yeah, yeah.
Locust Valley, Muttontown,
Yep. Old Brookville, Old Westbury. Yep,
over
that's
there.
what you're doing it for.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I could kind of see why the NEET would imagine a collapse. It's like, okay, you don't respect us. I'm not, F you, I'm not.
The problem is it won't be a lot of people think that it's going to be like an overnight change, and unfortunately, that's not how it worked. It's very slow and very gradual. Though because of the information age and the globalization, it's happening much faster than it would, let's say, during the time of the Roman Empire, where this would take hundreds of years. You're seeing it happen at a much, and it's at an accelerated pace. This so-called collapse. So
Right.
yeah, you're going to see more planes fall out of the sky. You're going to see roads not get fixed. You're going to see rolling blackouts down the line, more
Okay.
like 30 years from now, not just yet.
Yeah, because that actually is actually Ray actually predicted he predicts 30 years also. That's where I
Oh, the guy that I interviewed.
yeah, Raymond. Yeah, I had
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's on point. Yeah, it's about 30 years down the line.
Yeah, because I spoke to him. He published our inter. I published also my channel, and he published our conversation on his channel as well. If
Cool, cool. I didn't know you did a chat. I just knew you did with Andy. I didn't know you spoke
oh
with Raymond also.
yeah, because I saw that because I was mentioning his name before. I thought maybe you'd know because I saw that you had a chat with him recently. Also, he's a great guy to talk to, and yeah, I mean, I guess that wraps it up. And do you have anything else that you want to add? I mean, do you think that one thing before we go is that do you think that I mean I don't know how to phrase this. Meaning like I mean we do. I mean, do you believe that there is no male solidarity? Meaning that is this all like people like you, Raymond, who really do care about the plight of men? Is this really like
Well, you
for
think
not?
about it. Raymond's what 12, 13 hours by car away from me. Um, Most of my listeners are in England, and it's kind of an unspoken bond amongst men
Yes.
that these are the problems, but there's no uh, in-person meetup
Yeah.
for a lot of this type of these type of conversations. I see some of them, but they're not as frequent as they should be. You don't have like a Knights of Columbus or a Moose Lounge or even Freemasons
Yeah.
or some type of religious group where guys can get together and be themselves. Because a lot of people just wrapped up in their own world
Yeah.
and in their own thing. So it would have to get much more serious before guys start meeting up in person. I thought COVID might have been that spark that could have ignited something. But again, everyone is has their own frame of reference on whatever the problem might be, and I think that'll cause infighting amongst itself on how to correct the problem. But if at some point men just wind up falling in line and they listen to the best person in the room on
Yes.
how to correct these things. Unfortunately, there is no one. I think the maybe I want to say like Trump. Uh, Trump in his first round of trying to run for president did speak to uh, a lot of men, especially working class men, but that is the greatest threat to the powers that be is a cognitive working class. That is extremely dangerous to them, and that's why they continue this unfettered immigration,
Yeah.
um, and the Browning agenda is they don't want a functioning and coherent working class, and the people that run like hedge funds and on Wall Street and private equity groups, they're just cannibalizing whatever's left of the United States. It was really sick because I went to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania a while ago. It was like 5, 6 years ago. And there used to be a steel mill, it was Bethlehem Steel, right? They built aircraft carriers and shit. And the the factory is now a casino. So that just like I was just blown away by that. I'm like, wow. So you deindustrialized and you stuck a casino, and you're causing even more harm to this community by in introducing gambling to them because they're already down and out. Why not throw all their hopes and dreams at a on a craps table? So yeah, to kind of like bring it to a close as far as like where does it go and what can you do. Unfortunately, a major catastrophic event would need to unfold to right in the ship. um Whether that's war with Iran, which I highly doubt's going to happen, which is in the news right now. um I don't think the power structure. I think the power structure knows that there's no way in hell, even if a nuke drops on Hollywood, it's going to get their men to go and fight. There's no way any guy that's born in the United States is going to go fight in a foreign war ever again. And I've spoken to people in the State Department about it, and they're like, it is a pipe dream if they think the generals are going to whip up men to go and fight for uh, fight for Ukraine, fight for Israel. It's not going to happen. It probably more likely if it goes kinetic, it'll be more of a civil war. But I don't. I think that time had passed. If anything was really going to happen, it would have been during COVID. What I do see happening is women that have been indoctrinated and investing in ETFs, all these various 401k plans, Roth IRAs, and they're investing whatever. It just keeps going up and up and up. Ways that they have acquired mortgages, the way they've gone about their career. Again, they're not working in the trades. They're working in either the soft sciences, psychology, human resources, all these nice little things that go along with the actual functioning society. It's going to be when they're 50, 60, and it's just going to be the door is going to slam on them so hard. That's what I think is going to happen.
I see.
That it's gonna be ha 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 ha.
Yeah, well,
It's gonna what's the Jurassic Park? You didn't say the magic word. Please, God damn it. Samuel L. Jackson. I think that's what's gonna happen to a lot of these women that are on the bell curve working these type of frivolous paper pushing jobs that don't really bring any value to a society.
I see. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, perhaps it will. I mean, that's very possible what you're saying, actually.
Hey, you're childless. You're a dog mom. The mortgage you have, you didn't read the fine print. You didn't listen to the closing attorney. You didn't listen to the boyfriend who said, "Hey, that's not a good neighborhood to invest in." What do you know? The guy in the New York Times said this is the best place for gentrification in 15 years, and that's where it's gonna lead. Where any guy, this is what I realized when I present some type of argument saying, hey, this, that, and, this is a better way to do things. Actually, back 50 years ago, what really happened. And then they have the power of running whatever you just said through a Google search engine to counter what you just said. That's, well, don't go by what the Google search engine said. See, I actually read books about this stuff. Just because you click on the first link on Google doesn't mean that's correct and I'm wrong. So
Right.
the women that take enjoy these shortcuts through life are going to be the ones that will most likely get burned.
Yeah, yeah, and I really, yeah, I could see that happening. I mean, I don't really have any, despite what we say here. I've said this before. I don't mind discussing either of the sex's antisocial behavior, whether it's male antisocial behavior or female antisocial behavior. But I'm personally not one, not to indulge into this kind of like Schadenfreude thing where like I'm not going to feel good about that. I wouldn't feel good about that happening to women or any of these, even like we were saying before, these TikTok videos of women crying from their own poor decisions. I mean, I guess some
You can't blame them since that's what they were taught. That's what Josh Neal was saying. You can't just because you have the knowledge doesn't mean that they should know it also.
right.
Um, and unfortunately, speaking to myself, I get mad at people who can't see things for what they are and continue to wear the rosy glasses.
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. It seriously is an uncomfortable truth. And when you really start unraveling where this may lead, where you're going to have brother against daughter, which has never really been, it's something that's unprecedented through history. It's usually an invading force. But when you're actually turning, you're broadsiding your neighbors, and that's who you're angry at, and you're angry that this girl's having brunch with her doggy, and you're eating zesty and fries, and you don't have a pot to piss in. That guy's gonna have a serious axe to grind. He sees how easy she has it, and he never got to have any of those type of things, let alone fuck her. It is, dude. It is uncomfortable when you start venturing down that path, my friend. And
Yeah.
I've read numerous books about Vietnam and what U.S. troops did to Vietnamese women, and that's your grandfather and your fathers that did that shit, even though they're not going to say it. Okay, and you don't think men are capable just because they have a good Wi-Fi connection and and McDonald's. You don't think they're capable of doing the most unholiest things imaginable.
Exactly.
Not that long ago, they did these things with
Yeah.
no one really, with no sheepdog watching over the herd.
Yes. Yes. Actually, yeah. Very bad things happen when the yeah. We don't gotta go into too many details,
No,
but
but you get the point
no,
I'm
no, no,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah,
get.
yeah. No, I don't mind you insinuating that because I insinuated before about things that were very vile too. When
If women are not acknowledging the guy in the street, leaving the door open, or at least making eye contact, hello,
yes,
not under the guise of monetary gain, and you keep treating men like they're disposable and they don't exist and their emotions mean absolutely nothing, and you view men that express their emotion as weak or insecure, we'll see what happens. It's
right.
not gonna be. It's not gonna. It comes full circle.
Yes, because I actually could touch upon this, even though I'm drawing this out a little bit, and then
No,
we'll
no,
get
go for it. Yeah, dude, I'm straight. It's all good. I got like another 10 minutes. Don't
yeah.
go on.
That touches upon it also. What Devlin said is that Devlin said also it kind of goes into what you're saying is that this kind of malignant hypergamy or this negative outlook of men stirs up extreme envy and resentment in the population. And I'm also a transparent guy. I'm 45 years old. Like I'm like an open book at this point. I have limits because of the environment we're having, how much of an open book I could be. Is that I do remember in the 90s when I was going to school in the 90s, you know, my experience was that the kind of environment which was contrasting to the one that my uncle described, like I told you before, is that my uncle's environment in the same area of Queens where it was, let's say, nicer, more forgiving, more polite, whereas let's say a nerdy man or the ordinary man can be viewed socially viable. For example, this man could be a nerd who would go on to make a good living and find a wife, or just be an ordinary guy and make a life for himself. Is that when the 90s came around the high school and around the area that I was living in, when these kind of social pathologies that were originally seen in the poorer communities came to the white middle class, where the toughest guy on the block, the scumbag, became even more popular since that time, right? And I noticed that the women gravitated towards these what I call scum of the earth, right? And not that I ever had any bad ideas, but it really did induce for me as a young boy extreme envy and bitterness because you let's say some men are inclined to be decent, inclined to think, hey, I don't like the pathologization of the word nice guy. I'm talking about a genuinely decent guy. You know what I'm saying? The whole thing with it, nice men are not really nice. I'm not getting to that shit because there are decent men out there, right? There are decent men who don't have all this shit in their head. They're actually nice. And you see this before you and you say to yourself, that does cause a great deal of resentment in people. And what's going on now is causing a great deal of resentment. And with the final question is that, do you have any advice to young men? Do you have any advice to young men in terms of how to live a satisfying life in this sort of environment? Because I do still see some men that are young, family members or even, friend of a friend or a friend of my wife's family that are still doing all right. There are still men out there who are going to school, going into a trade, finding a good woman, having children, and are not as predicted by not all, nearly every red pillar, you'll see she's going to leave you. You'll see stats show she's going to take half your stuff. I mean, there's still men out there whose lives are doing pretty good. I mean, do you have any advice on how maybe a man could go about that before we wrap it up?
I'd say maybe the past 5 years, especially now in my later half of my 30s, I've learned not to be a people pleaser. So do not be a people pleaser.
Yes.
I know it's very hard, and you have to set boundaries because then people are going to walk all over your boundaries, especially if it's the opposite sex. Even though you're getting some, don't let anyone uh, don't let others ruin the good character or good nature of your being. I think that's one thing I've learned, especially post COVID. I think COVID also exposed to a lot of people others' proclivities of being a control freak and how unpleasant others might be. So that's one thing. Also, just to find something to be passionate about. And I think when you're self-pissed, as I like, this is a new term I like, is self-pissed, which is my way of saying depressed. Um, when you're depressed, you're not finding joy in anything. Adenia, I think it is what it's called, where you don't get pleasure from things anymore. You have to find something you're passionate about, even if it's something that's blackpilling and miserable. Hence why I'm doing these shows, because I enjoy them. It's a form of catharsis.
Yeah, exactly.
But you definitely try to get out and find something that's enjoyable. It doesn't necessarily have to be with others. Um, you have to have something to look forward to, whether it's going on a vacation, something to do with work. That's important, is trying to find something to look forward to and find something that you would find um, feeling in. So that's basically it. For me, reading. I started sewing. I kite surf now, something that I've never thought in a million years I would be doing, but it's something I always thought was really cool. I'm not an athletic person. It takes a lot of training, a lot of experience, and a lot of time. But I'm like, hey, this is something I really want to do. Don't worry so much about how much the cost of these things, because you only have one life to live. And if you're just being a minimalist and bug man and zesty and fries, and you're just socking away money, well, it's money is money is currency. Got to keep it current. It's got to keep moving. So make sure you allocate some money for yourself and for things that you actually enjoy doing.
Yeah, I totally on board with
Everyone's living in debt, man. Just, hey, listen, nothing's changed, right? Everyone thought the housing market was going to crash during COVID. You got the complete opposite. So the party is still raging.
you. Yeah,
I don't want to hear this is just stock market's going down, bond market's collapsing. Really? If I look outside, birds are chirping and cars are still moving, damn it.
yeah, and the stock market is actually doing at the moment as I speak, it's doing well. So
Right, we got bombs going off in Israel and Iran. Neither of them have declared war on each other. Hasn't changed a fucking thing. It's barely even in the news right now. It's crazy. I thought it would be all over the news, but I think maybe just people are just burned out by it.
oh yeah, yes, I think that too. But yeah, I mean, I'll wrap it up here. It's been a good discussion. I really thank you for talking to me and giving me this interview.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it again sometime soon.
Sure.
Shows the channel's MGTOW Chats.